The night of the binding ceremony was supposed to be the proudest night of Chaol Draven's life. Instead, it became the night his pride was torn apart in front of everyone he ruled. He stood at the edge of the great hall in Northreach, dressed in the ceremonial black and silver of the Alpha King, waiting for his mate to walk through the doors. The whole pack had gathered. Candles lined the stone walls. The elders had already begun the old chant that would seal the bond between him and Alira Voss, the quiet healer's daughter who had somehow, against every expectation, been named his fated mate. But Alira never came. A servant found her room empty, the window open, her ceremonial dress left folded neatly on the bed, as if she had taken the time to be careful, even while running away. On the floor lay her torn cloak, caught on a nail by the door, as though she had pulled herself free without looking back. Chaol did not cry out. He did not curse. He simply stood very still, the way he always did when something cut deeper than anyone could see. Then he turned to his guards and said, in a voice too calm to be safe, "Find her." They searched the territory for 3 days. Her scent led them north, past the fields, past the river, straight to the edge of the Ashwood, a forest so old and so silent that even seasoned wolves refused to enter it. No pack had crossed its border in 3 generations. Stories said the trees remembered too much, and that the ground itself did not welcome outsiders. His advisors begged him not to go in. "My king," said General Thorne, his oldest and most trusted commander, "no one returns from the Ashwood the same. Whatever she is running from, or running to, it is not worth losing yourself over." Chaol did not answer him directly. He only looked toward the tree line, jaw tight, eyes burning with something between anger and heartbreak. "She was mine," he said quietly. "She belonged beside me, and she left without a single word." He told himself it was fury driving him forward. He told himself she was a coward, unworthy of the crown she had almost worn. But beneath that anger was something he refused to admit even to himself. The ache of rejection, sharp and unfamiliar, from the one person the universe had chosen for him. He crossed into the Ashwood alone the next morning. The forest was unlike anything he had known. No birds called. No wind stirred the leaves. Even his own footsteps seemed to vanish into the moss without sound. For the first time in years, Chaol Draven, Alpha King of Northreach, felt small. He walked for 2 days, surviving on instinct and stubbornness, following a scent trail that grew fainter with every mile. On the 3rd day, just as the light began to fade, he heard movement in the trees, quick, coordinated, deliberate. Before he could react, he was surrounded. They came from every direction, dressed in dark green armor, with a symbol stitched over their hearts, a silver crown wrapped in thorns. He had never seen that mark before. He fought, of course. Years of training did not leave him easily, but there were too many, and they moved with a discipline that told him this was no ragtag band of outcasts. These were soldiers, trained, loyal to something old and organized. They disarmed him, bound his hands, and marched him deeper into the forest than he had ever imagined a living thing could go. What waited for him at the end of that march stole the breath from his lungs. The trees opened into a wide, hidden valley, glowing faintly with lanterns, strung between ancient towers built from pale stone. A small city rose from the earth like something out of legend, walls carved with old symbols, rooftops catching the last light of the sun, smoke rising gently from chimneys, as if this place had existed peacefully for centuries, completely unknown to the outside world. At the center of it all stood a throne room, open to the sky, its pillars wrapped in flowering vines, and on the throne, dressed not in a healer's plain robes but in polished armor, the color of deep forest green, sat Alira. She did not look like the woman who had vanished from his hall. She sat straight-backed, calm, commanding, her chin lifted with the quiet authority of someone born to rule. A circlet rested on her brow. Around her stood advisors, soldiers, and servants, who watched her with clear respect, even love. Chaol stared at her, and for the first time in his life, he did not know what to say. "Release him," Alira said, her voice steady, carrying easily across the stone chamber. The guards obeyed instantly. Chaol rubbed his wrists, his eyes never leaving her face. "Alira," he said, his voice rough. "What is this place?" She rose from the throne and walked toward him slowly, her expression unreadable. "This is Thornvale," she said. "My mother's kingdom, hidden for 3 generations, rebuilt these last 5 years, stone by stone, by people who refuse to let it die." "You're a healer's daughter," Kale said, though even as he spoke the words, he could hear how foolish they sounded now. "That was a name I wore," Illyra said. "Not a lie, exactly. My mother was a healer, once, before she lost her crown and her kingdom, to men who wanted both. I grew up learning her trade, because it let me move through your territory without notice. It let me watch. It let me learn who you were before I ever had to stand in front of you as anyone's mate." Kale's chest tightened. "You were spying on my pack." "I was protecting mine," she said, without apology. "You cannot blame a queen for guarding her people, Kale, even if it meant deceiving a king to do it." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The lanterns flickered. Somewhere in the valley below, a bell rang softly, marking the hour. "You left me at the altar," Kale finally said, and this time his voice cracked, just slightly, betraying the wound beneath the anger. "In front of everyone. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Illyra's composed expression faltered, just for a moment. "I know," she said quietly, "and I am not proud of how it looked. But I could not bind myself to you that night, Kale, not because I did not feel the pull between us. I did. I still do. But because the moment I became your mate, Thornvale would have been exposed. Every soul in this valley would have become a bargaining piece in your court, a secret weapon, or a target for your enemies. I was not willing to gamble their lives on a night of vows I had not yet earned the right to make. So instead, you let me believe you ran from me out of fear," Kale said. "Or worse, that you were taken." "I know it was cruel," she admitted, "but it was safer than the truth, or so I believed." He studied her, the way a king studies an unfamiliar map, searching for something solid to hold on to. "And now?" Illyra drew a slow breath. "Now you already know the truth, whether I wanted you to or not, so I will not hide the rest of it either." She gestured for him to follow, and led him through the throne room to a balcony that overlooked the valley. Below them, small fires burned outside modest homes. Children ran through narrow stone streets. It was, Kale realized with a strange ache in his chest, a kingdom no different in spirit from his own, only smaller, quieter, and far more fragile. "For the last 2 years," Illyra said, "raiders have struck our outer villages. We believed them to be wandering bandits, opportunists drawn by rumors of an unclaimed valley. But 3 months ago, we captured one, and he wore markings I recognized." She paused. "The same markings that have appeared on the raiders striking your western border, the ones you blamed on bandits from the hill clans." Kale's eyes narrowed. "You're saying the attacks on my territory and the attacks on yours come from the same source?" "I am saying it is no coincidence," Illyra said. "There is an old prophecy in my family, one my mother believed in even as her kingdom fell. It says that when a hidden crown and a border crown are drawn together by fate, it will not be for romance alone, but because only their combined strength can face what is coming. I did not believe it, not fully, until the day I was told you were my mate." Kale let that settle over him, the anger inside him slowly reshaping itself into something else, not forgiveness yet, but understanding. "You still should have told me," he said. "Trusted me, even a little." "Would you have trusted a stranger with your entire kingdom's secret, the very first night you met her?" Illyra asked gently. "Even if the stars themselves had written your names together?" He had no answer for that, because the truth was, he might not have. They stood in silence for a while, the cool night air settling between them, filled with the quiet sounds of a kingdom that had survived in secret for far longer than it should have been able to. "I came here to drag you home," Kale admitted finally. "I told myself you were a coward. I told myself you didn't deserve to be my queen."
"And now?"
Illyra asked, watching him carefully. "Now I understand you were never running from me," he said. "You were protecting something greater than either of us. That is not cowardice. That is the very thing a good ruler is supposed to do." Something in Illyra's shoulders eased, as though she had been holding her breath for longer than just that conversation, perhaps for years. "I am not asking you to command my people," she said. "Thornvale is mine, built by my hands and my mother's memory. If our fates are truly tied together, then let it be as equals, not as a king absorbing a smaller kingdom into his own. Kale inclined his head, something like respect and admiration, settling into his expression. Then let it be a partnership, he said. Northreach will stand with Thornvale, not over it. Whatever is coming for us, we face it side by side. For the first time since he had crossed into the Ashwood, Elira allowed herself a small, genuine smile. That, she said, is the answer I hoped you would give, though I did not dare expect it. In the days that followed, Kale remained in the valley, not as a prisoner or a conqueror, but as a guest, slowly becoming something more. He watched Elira govern her people with a steadiness he deeply admired, listening to her counsel, walking her streets, learning the names of children who ran up to greet her without fear. He saw, more clearly with each passing day, the woman his fate had chosen for him, not a runaway bride, but a queen, forged by loss and determined survival. When at last preparations began for the two kingdoms to formally unite, there was no forced ceremony, no rushed vows spoken under pressure. Instead, on a quiet evening beneath the open sky of the Thornvale Valley, Elira herself asked Kale to stand beside her, and this time, she did not run. Their bond was sealed, not by tradition or obligation, but by her own choice, made freely, with full knowledge of who he was and what their joined kingdoms would face together. Northreach's warriors began training beside Thornvale's soldiers, sharing what each side knew about the raiders who threatened them both. Word was sent quietly through allied territories, warning of the trouble gathering at their borders. On the night before Kale was set to return to Northreach with Elira at his side, the two of them stood once more at the edge of the Ashwood, where his chase had first led him into her world. "You didn't find a runaway, Kale," Elira said softly, looking out at the forest that had hidden her kingdom for so long. "You found the only enemy that could have ended you, and instead, you chose to stand beside her." Kale reached for her hand, lacing his fingers through hers, steady and sure. "Then let them come," he said. "Whatever is out there, they will find both our kingdoms waiting, together." And as the first light of morning touched the treetops, the Alpha King and the Hidden Queen stepped forward, side by side, ready to face whatever fate had truly been preparing them for all along.